Oh, thank you so much for coming, everybody. As was mentioned, today is going to be interactive. There's going to be moments where I'm going to put you to work. And it's because today is all about digging deeper into our music for exactly the reasons we just said, for our health and our well being. So we're going to start with a thought. The first thought is behind every song is an untold story. That could not be more true for me and my origin story of what led me to become a music therapist. And it all began with Granddad. Granddad had his second major stroke and was placed in long term care at the age of 62. A relatively young man, he was no longer able to walk or talk. It was the time where there was a lot of nursing, and we were so grateful for it. But this concept of how do we care wasn't there yet. We didn't explore this quality of life measures that we so much incorporate now into the collaborative care and well-being that we have for people in the hospital. So my granny had an idea. She said, "Hey, Jenny, the next time you come in," keeping in mind I was like 13 years old, "the next time you come in, I think you should play your granddad's favorite song." Now, what's interesting about that is I first have to tell you about Granddad. Granddad was truly the grumpiest person I'd ever met in my entire life. And so being told to learn Granddad's favorite song, I first had to reconcile with the fact that even grumpy people have favorite songs. So in this case, I said, okay, because it was Granny who was asking me. Granny was the most special person in my life, and maybe you have a person like that in yours. And she said, here it is. And it was this incredible piece. When we talk about behind every song, there is a story. In this case, it was a song from 1942, and it was written by Walter Kent and Nat Burton, and it was sung and made popular by Vera Lynn, called The White Cliffs of Dover. I would go home and learn that very old song, because when you're 13, it was a very old song, and it's even older now. And I would go home and return the following Friday, and well, Granny was ready for me. I walked in with my guitar, and Granny had a chair right in front of Granddad. Him and I looked at each other. I'm not sure who was the most terrified. And she said, with a little squeeze on the shoulder, "Go ahead, dear. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after tomorrow when the world is free." Well, here we were. And one of the things that happened, I don't know if you've ever met the Screaming Lady, but the Screaming Lady was down the hall, and she got closer and closer and closer. And in she came, but we noticed she was no longer screaming. She was singing every word. So Granny pulled up a chair right beside me. And then there's the wandering guy. Maybe you know the wandering guy. They don't say too much, but when they came on in, Granny pulled up the last chair in this small space, and he would sit for a while. And then I would look at Granddad, oh, grumpy Granddad, and it would be the very first time that I would see him cry. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see. Oh, the motley crew. Here we had a screaming lady, a wandering guy, a grumpy grandpa, and a broody teenager, a tween. And what was happening? Well, we were connecting for the first time in a way that was so deeply meaningful. We called today's session The Meaning of the Mixtape. The meaning of the mixtape. What is it for? Well, during my time, it was about the curation of music that would last in my life for the rest of my life, as I'm sure people sitting here have experienced themselves. But that particular story, that particular song, took me back to a very, very specific time and with incredible lessons that I have carried with me for the duration of my career. The first one is, a single moment can change a life. And in this case, it changed my entire career. The trajectory had been planned. Granny would go on to learn about what music therapy was and tell me about it a couple of years later and say, Jenny, I think you should become a music therapist. Okay, there was no other plan for me. This was it. I would go into long-term care every Friday until I actually joined the program that I was going to get my degree in music therapy. A single moment can change a life. And what music does with that is it can help us anchor our memory to that moment. The next one is getting to the heart of the matter matters. These next 7 weeks are going to be all about this. Music has an incredible capacity to bypass the verbal and go right to our feelings. And our feelings matter. And I know sometimes feelings are tough for people. And I know it's difficult to express some of those. But music can do a lot of the heavy lifting when we need it most. And we're going to really dig into that and how can we leverage music to help us through some of these feelings we might be having. And the last one is, a song's never just a song. That White Cliffs of Dover has come back to me so many times. I share it with almost every audience that I speak in front of because it is so poignant for me. And it helps me feel grounded in this moment as I stand in front of you, a little nervous and a little excited too. Because I want to be able that with our group today that we're going to leave. And my goal, use music about 5% more in our lifetime in a more intentional way. We are going to start with one of the activities in the workbook. And don't worry if you don't have it with you right now. We are going to work, it's on page 2 to 5. And we're going to go through a few questions together. I'm going to read each of the questions, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break so you can just talk to someone next to you. I'm hoping you like them. If you don't like them, you can either move or you can just go, I don't want to talk to anybody today, so I'm just going to think about it myself, and that's good too. But we're going to go through these because assessing our listening habits is one of the first steps. It's about how are we using music now? Like how have we been using it over the last year or two or throughout the course of our life? And are we thinking about our listening habits? Here's your first question. just to get you thinking about it. What and when do you listen to music the most? When do you listen to music the most? I'd like you to go and have a short conversation about that. Go ahead. I love that we can go into deep conversation right away. So here's the good news. This is a part of our workbook. So I'm giving you homework at the end of today, so then you can go and you can fill a lot of it in. But I'm curious, did anyone here already have an insight into when you listen to music the most? Would anyone be open to sharing it with the group? And remember, there's no right or wrong answers in this room. There's no judgment. Yes. At the gym. Always listen to music at the gym. And do you know why you're listening to it there? It eliminates the pain and it helps us to feel motivated, energized, and ready to go. Okay, anybody else? 100% always in your car. Now, curious, anyone in the audience where it's opposite, it's always quiet in the car? Yes. See, this is more to show how diverse the preferences can be and decisions that we make. Okay, here's your next question. When do you not, like ever, listen to music? When do you not listen to music? Go ahead. All right, you've heightened my curiosity. Where are some of the places you never listen to music? Ever? Yes. It would be your choice to always have it, so only when they make you not. Got it. Okay, great. What other answers do we have? Yes. Right? Okay. Let's ask the audience that question. How many people need music to go to sleep? Anybody in the audience or like music to sleep? Yep. See, that can happen as well. The preferences can be huge on that. My guess is because those that have a hard time listening to music at night is because music is so highly activating, it does not put you into that restful sleep that you're needing. Whereas for some people, they probably are pretty ramped up at night and they're using music to come on down. So we can talk about that over the coming weeks. Okay, anybody else? When do you never listen to music? Right? Some people, again, can absolutely listen to music to focus. Does anyone know that? Welcome, children. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so yes, some people, and is it a fairly steady beat that you're listening to as you study or work? And then some people, it doesn't work at all. Next week, we're going to talk about music in the brain, and we're going to talk about why. Why does that work for some people and doesn't work for other people? Okay, what other? There was one more that you never listen to music when? Can you tell me about that? Talk radio. Always when you're alone. These things say something about us, and in particular, they say something about our preferences. All the science out there is going to remind us how important our music preferences are, including when we listen to music. But that doesn't mean we can't expand on that a little bit. So I'd like you to start thinking about, are there any changes you would like to make to your listening habits? That's for you personally. Is there a time when you would like to be listening to it a little bit more, exploring it a little bit more? And over these 7 weeks, I'm hoping what happens is that I can inspire you to do just that. Well, we're here talking about the meaning of the mixtape. So funny, I showed this image to my husband and he goes, "That's not how you spell it." Now, I want you to know this. On the next slide, I am going to show you that there are two spellings of this, and that indeed is one of them. Okay? So, but the mixtape, curating our songs, it is quite simply that. It's about putting together a list of songs in a very organized way, but organized for us. It's so deeply personal. So in 2016, there was an HBO series that came out that was talking called The Hip Hop Evolution, still available on Netflix. And it was produced by and directed and organized by a real great Canadian broadcaster and rapper named Shad out of Toronto. And I am not sitting here looking at all of you and going, oh, I bet you they all love rap music. I'm sure that's not true. But what I am going to share with you is I do believe that every one of us in this room should watch episode 1 if we're at all interested in the mixtape, because it's going to take us back into that real historical context of where the mixtape came from. And it came from iconic DJs like Kool Herc and Grandmaster Flash and the streets of New York, putting together these mixtapes basically to sell their services and say, we can get that party started for you. And that's exactly what this was. It was a way to find a community groove. Mixtapes have been surely really personal for us, but it's also been a way for us to share with other people. And I'd like us to keep that in our minds as we think about it. The other thing that's really important, another documentary I'm going to send you to for homework, is the simple one called Cassette. And it is on Prime right now. And Cassette is all about Lou Ottens, who created the cassette. And he was an inventor. He worked for Philips for his entire career. And you know how he decided the size? He cut a piece of wood and it needed to fit in his pocket. That's exactly how we found the size of the cassette. It's also how eventually we started carrying our music around and being able to have a player, because it was going to be able to fit. Remember, for some of us, we hooked it on our belt loop, or you were able to just carry it in your hand. But it had to have this element of portability. And so we have Lou to thank for that. So I'm going to highly encourage, it's a very, very interesting documentary called Cassette. But for our terms of reference, this is what we need. We need to understand that a mixtape is essentially that curation of a set of songs or pieces of music or genres that are going to mean something to us. The second word that we've been using a lot is around purposeful. I am wanting us to put in some effort. I'm not going to be afraid to ask you to put some work in. I mean, the concept of putting together a mixtape sounds simple, but I'm telling you, it's not easy. And that is because it does take some time and it does take some work. And that's the best part of this entire experience, is we're going to decide exactly the reason we're going to create that playlist and we're going to put the time into it. I can remember my tween years lying on my stomach in front of a boombox with dual cassette player with the radio all incorporated. 3 stations. It felt like there were only 3 stations at the time. And you had to wait until your favorite song came on. You had to place your 2 thumbs exactly the same time on play and record. It couldn't be slightly off at all, especially if one of those buttons stuck a little, right? And you had to press it down. And then you got your song and the announcer came on too soon. Do you remember that? And so you had to put your pencil in, roll it back just a little bit so you could get your full minutes of play on your cassette. You would then put a heart. And you would then write out, remember the little lines? You wrote the little lines of every song that was on there. And then you would go to school the next day and you would see your best friend and you would say, "Here, I made this for you." And what you were essentially saying is, I just spent the last 8 hours of my life putting this together because I love you so much. It was a way for us to give over our feelings and what was really important to us. So when I'm talking about purposeful, I'm meaning that level of intention that we used to putting to curating our mixtape, to share a feeling, to share a moment, to really emphasize those anchor moments that we might have in our life. And the last word, of course, is wellness. And being a part of the wellness group here at the National Music Center and knowing the value that NMC places here is such a deep honor for me. Wellness is unique to every one of us too. The question is, how would you define wellness? Are you feeling well? Would you like to feel weller? And so we're going to use music as one of these incredible tools and resources that can help us do just that. It's just a piece of the pie. It's just a part of it. But it's something that we can all connect to in some way and that we can personalize. All right. Well, over the last couple of years that I've been working with clients as young as infants and going all the way up to elders, and we've been visiting a lot of places, including hospitals and long-term care settings. We might also go to employee assistance programs, and we're working with the people, all the people going through a lot of things. And what we kept hearing about is what we heard on the radio were the uncertain times. What people were looking for was certainty. And music has this incredible capacity, especially familiar music, to bring a level of certainty to us. So I have a question for you, and this is also in your workbook. I would like you to think about what music you have been drawn to lately. And by lately, it could have been your drive over here today. It could be what you've been listening to for the last couple of weeks. It could even be the last 6 months or 2 years. Whatever lately is to you, I want you to decide what music you have been drawn to lately. I'd like you to go back to your little friend and have a conversation about that. The music you've been drawn to lately. Go ahead. Okay, now that you have shared some of what you've been drawn to lately, this is that taking it a step further task. I've put some adjectives on the board behind me. I'd like you to look at those and choose only 3 words to describe the music you've been drawn to lately. Don't talk to your neighbor about it. This is for you. And there may be other words I have not included there, so pick the one that fits best for you. But I'd like you to come up with only 3, enough that you can repeat it in your mind, the 3 words that describe the music you've been drawn to lately. I'd like you to repeat those 3 words in your mind. Just 3 words that describes the music you've been drawn to lately. If preferences really matter, and if music is so deeply personal as it is it possible? Is it possible that those 3 words also describe you? If yes, I want you to sit in that for a little while. If no, my question is it what you aspire to be or what you might want to go to therapy about? So I want you to sit in that. Here we are, our 3 words. If I was to distill everything I wanted to share with you today, it is essentially this. When we use the right music at the right time, in the right way, transformation can indeed happen. And by transformation, I mean screaming ladies sing, wandering guys can sit, grumpy granddads cry, and broody teenagers can feel connected. Your transformation is up to you, but music truly has the capacity to do that. Here is your homework from track 1. I would like you to finish the track 1 exercises in the Power of the Playlist workbook on pages 2 to 5. And if you're wondering where it is, it's on the homepage of the Power of the Playlist, and you can download it right there. It's complimentary as just attending today. Thank you so much. I encourage you to watch the first episode of the Hip Hop Evolution, every person in this room, and just get to know a little bit about the history of that mixtape on the New York streets. I would love you to watch Cassette and learn about Lou and come back next week and tell me, Jen, he was an amazing inventor and did all sorts of things. I want you to learn about that. And the last one is that we haven't talked about yet. I would like you to visit songfacts.com. This is an amazing resource. If at all talking about the music of the past and in your current life and the stories that go along with it, and perhaps watching some videos and getting some trivia and becoming so much better at just knowing the deeper stories behind the songs, the music, the artists, the genre, the style of music. All that can be found at Songfacts. You can even sign up for their daily news. And every morning, you will get a song fact from the day. So you might enjoy that. It's a really, really fun reading. On this next slide, I have put a way for us to stay connected. This is a way for us to get feedback on this series, so we know and make sure that we're answering all your questions out there. You can take a picture of the QR code or just a picture so you can download the URL afterwards. And it's a way for us to also get to know how are you using music in your own life right now, which will be a really fun sort of slide on the last day on how are we using music. And perhaps there's been some changes since we started the series. So this is the quick survey and how we can stay connected. Is everyone good? Do you have it? Okay, I can come back to this one. And just as a reminder, next week, we're starting at 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock, and we're going to look at the art and science of music. That picture will be explained, and I'm so glad we've got such a big screen so you can read all those words. But we are going to look at all the different places in the brain where music tends to reside. And keep in mind that the recordings of today's track and all the tracks are going to be available at amplify.nmc.ca. And I'm going to leave some room for questions. If you love reading, I love writing. And I've put together some books. These are resources. These are meant to be used in schools, and these are meant to be used with our families, from our kids to those who might be interested in music therapy. There's a children's book called My Body Special and includes 13 songs. It came out of the work that I did with young children with cerebral palsy and us spending time together. And from 1998, Tune In is all about music therapy. If you know someone in your life, we only have 1,200 music therapists in all of Canada. We need more. Wellness Incorporated is for organizations who are looking for best practices, all based on the work that's happening within the music therapy community. And the last book is Everything About Today, which is the Wellness Well Played. You can get a hard copy of the workbook if you prefer that, or as we've mentioned, you can download it complimentary right off of the website. Of course, we have to thank Bell, for otherwise this would not be happening. And this is part of their Bell for Better program and initiative. And if I was going to end on anything for today, our first track, let us remember a song is never just a song, and a playlist is never just a playlist. A song is a really meaningful moment to you, and a playlist is your journey. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of yours today and for the next 6 weeks. Thank you.